BTL coming at you. Good Monday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that Matt and I want to talk about. Matthew, a fun weekend for me. How was your weekend? You did road trip, right?
I was trying to think. Yeah, no. So I was in North Missouri Friday night for the girlfriend's barrel race.
You went to Michigan, right?
Then we drove to northern Indiana, got in at 4 a.m., stayed there for 3 hours, then drove up to Michigan. Coincidentally, Charlotte, fairly close to Kalamazoo.
Oh, that's where you were?
Yeah, dead nuts in the middle of the mint, and then we drove all the way back home, got in at 10 o'clock last night.
Did she win?
She was last place in the money. So
okay, she didn't win squat.
She won $500.
I thought you just said last hole. Oh, last hole in the money.
So there's like 45, and they'll pay like 6 holes. She had an interesting run. It was very comparable to like jumping off a 6-pounder first thing in the morning and then still being able to squeak out a check. Her horse tripped and pulled a shoe. You know what that means? The horseshoe came off during the run, and she still was able to throw something down to get some money out.
I guess the horse didn't care, did he?
It would be like getting 6 bites during the day, but you jump a 5 off first thing in the morning, and you're still able to hold it together and get.
So did she qualify for whatever she was qualifying for?
Yeah, she's in the process. What did you do that was so fun this week?
Oh, dude, first NFL weekend. Watched a ton of football.
Yeah,
and it was just
you just relaxed.
No, I mean we got the whole reconstruction going on in there, but just an entire weekend of football. And dude, I am going to great measures trying to get my back fixed, all right, before I go see the specialist.
I mean, you didn't hurt it. This is just old age.
Yeah, and you know, with all the stress and strain on it. So guess what I started doing?
Yoga.
Yes, DDP yoga.
Did you get some
Diamond Dallas Page yoga?
Nike spandex?
No, but there are 2 exercises that my physical therapist instructed me to start doing, and he pulled those exercises from the DDP Yoga DVD.
Now, he is an old school wrestler, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
Been around forever.
They'd have done some ESPN stuff. So.
Yeah. So just watched a lot of football and did my yoga and watched this guy dominate once again during the weigh-in on Oneida Lake, and we're going to have him on the show Wednesday. I'm talking about Gray Buck.
FLW Tour Pro, a lot of the guys you expected to do well.
Yeah.
Man, you almost feel bad for some of these guys trying to make it because it's like just taking money from a baby, these guys. I mean, you had Gray Buck, and then Jamie Hartman came in third, Jamie Caldwell.
And your friend, your buddy, finished in second.
Yeah, we're going to have him on in the second half of the show, but we do have an in-studio guest.
We're going to have Chris Zaldain live in studio right here in about 5 minutes. And then I want to let everybody know a lot of action taking place this month in the state of Oklahoma. The Open at Grand Lake kicking off this week. We're going to have Brad Hallman on live via Skype on Tuesday, tomorrow.
Practicing from Grand Lake for the Open.
Going to give us, hopefully, a little bit of insight on what's going to happen at Grand Lake. And then the other thing that took place.
Oh, this was the biggest news of the week. We haven't even talked about it. We're 7 minutes into the show.
I'm getting to it. All right. The fact that the Elite Series stop has been moved to Lake Tenkiller, a body of water that you and I both are extremely familiar with. And what do you think about that move, Matthew?
It's interesting. I've done a little research, and I do believe they are going to keep the 16-inch limit on largemouth and smallmouth, but go with 12-inch spotted bass. So we've seen the college national championship there kind of this time of year in the past. A lot of guys in Oklahoma know how that fishes. I actually went and broke my boat in on Gibson last week. It was the ramp that they were planning on using is closed right now. I mean, there's
Taylor's Ferry.
Taylor's Ferry had the cones across it because I went in there first. I mean, the lake looked good, but it's just been so fluctuating. So, I mean, this is I was trying to think I mean, this has got to be good for everyone involved. There's just more fish in Tenkiller. That it's
I
all
don't
three
know.
species.
Yeah, but the thing about it is you and I both know there are areas on that body of water the cell service sucks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do the live. But they obviously know how to do it because they did live for the national championship, I believe.
In certain areas.
In certain areas. So Bass has had experience there, and it's definitely going to change the dynamic of this thing. And if you think about it, smallmouth are going to play once again in over half of the season. Think about it.
I don't know how much smallmouth's going to come into play just based upon the time of the year that they are there.
There's going to be smallmouth weighed in and spotted bass weighed in.
I say very few.
But there will be, right?
There will be, but I say very few.
Well, I mean, you go back to Lanier, there were smallmouth there. They just came off of 2 tournaments where there were multiple species.
I don't think you're going to see anybody go out and catch 5 smallmouth.
This is the year of the multi-species.
Do you know for a fact on that they are going to let them weigh in 12-inch Kentuckys?
That's what my...
We'll see if Chris knows that.
My work has told me that. But, yeah, you think Jason went, well, crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. In case anybody doesn't know, that is Jason Christie's home body of
beyond
water.
hope. I mean, he would be like, you thought he was a favorite at Grand. You should have seen him. But no, he's not fishing it. And then in the points, I believe the points are done too. Very interesting Eastern Open points. Very interesting. You got Brian Schmidt, who is proving to be one of the top anglers in the world through his Costa wins, his success on the FLW Tour, has an FLW Tour win. He wins, or he's in first in the points. John Cox, once again. Buddy Gross, Austin Felix. All those guys in the
We're going to try and get him
10.
on the show.
Yeah,
we're going to try and get Austin on the show.
Felix on.
It's going to be decision time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going to have a ton of stuff to talk about.
My buddy just texted me, too, about Tenkiller. He said, hey, with the water levels it's been, a lot of those fish have been untouched this year, too. I mean, there's been long stretches where, those fish usually get hammered and pounded on.
Yeah.
And pretty much all across. So now Grand gets making up for it in a month. But as far as Tenkiller and those other lakes around there, I mean, those fish haven't, a lot of them, I mean, well, besides Jason Christie, who's probably caught 3/4 of them over the past month.
Yeah. A couple other things I want to mention real quick, and then we will take a break and come back with Chris Zaldain in studio. I was channel flipping and ran across the NASCAR race, and I know we have the Joe Gibbs racing team listens to our show.
Yep.
I was, I don't know, shocked, surprised at the amount of people that were at the stands at the NASCAR race that took place at Indy this past weekend.
Were you shocked or surprised?
There was nobody in the stands, dude. And now I know that place seats hundreds of thousands of people.
Optical
I get
illusion.
I get
it's
that.
Like the Bassmaster Classic in Soldier Field.
But it was almost like that.
I don't know.
So I don't know what's going on, and I had a conversation with somebody who is a diehard NASCAR fan, and they just said the coolness of the casual fan, the coolness of NASCAR is just kind of going away.
Well, here's the thing that I noticed. So NASCAR, it's been messing around with their format, their chase, I think is what they call it now, as to who's in and who's out and the points. And then something we also didn't talk about was golf. They're headed toward, Rory McIlroy won the $15 million, but that final tournament started with guys already had scores to par based on how, so they're messing with their format. Then you've got the fishing format obviously getting messed with.
I was going to send
so
it back
here's
to
a
that.
bunch of these sports that are all trying to get a sector of the casual fan more engaged by really changing the way their championship and formats are run. It'd be interesting to see across the board how all that. I know lacrosse is doing the same thing. Rodeos even tried to do the same thing all in the past couple years.
You know who had a massive crowd this weekend besides all the NFL games?
Who had a massive crowd this weekend?
I mean, massive.
The U.S. Open tennis? Yeah, where Serena could not get the job done.
It was unreal. Now, I know that place always sells out, but I was sitting there, I was watching it, and the aerial shots that they had of the tennis complex that they have there in New York, thought, is there a way to have a drive-through weigh-in from that stadium? And I could not see an opening that they have where a truck and boat could actually fit into it, because take down the tennis net and think about how that arena is structured.
That's in New York, right?
Yeah. What a great place.
That's
a great place to have the Classic.
Wishful thinking.
If you would move it around
on Arthur Ashe court, they would never let a fishing tournament.
That's like, it's concrete.
That's like the holy grail of.
No, that would be Wimbledon.
No, I meant in
the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah,
they're not gonna let.
But I'm
they
just
wouldn't
saying,
even let them touch the grass in Houston. They had to like walk a tightrope on the grass in Houston. You want them to wheel the trucks across the court at Arthur Ashe.
But you know
what are you gonna get the McEnroes to
No, I'm just talking about
commentate
the complex. That would be like the perfect complex.
Oh, you got Tripp sitting in the chair, the umpire's chair. 12 pounds, 2 ounces, first place.
Mark it. There you have it. No, but I am fascinated with that whole complex and the way that they have center court set up there. And
well, if you got less than 10, you got to weigh in on one of the side courts.
You're in the auxiliary court. But I'm kind of the casual tennis fan, and just some great tennis with Nadal getting it done on the men's sides. And then the chick from Canada, 19 years old or 18 years old, didn't even get out of the first round of the qualifier last year. And she ends up beating Serena and winning the U.S. Open.
One of the other things I know, there are fines in fishing. Did you see there was that one qualifier who made it past the third round? He had over $19,000 in fines. He yelled at a ball boy. He broke a racket. He pissed off an umpire, and he had like 3 separate fines of like $9,000, $4,000, and $2,000. He got fined $19,000 just for what he had done. It kind of just reminded me of these. You remember like they get fined for not wearing their jersey at the meeting, like $250 or something like that. Yeah. Ike would always like come in with it slung over his shoulder, like, fine me, do it.
Yeah, I don't really get that.
All right.
But anyway.
We'll get a jerseyless Chris Zaldain in
That's
studio.
the only way that I would let him appear on this show.
Did you really make a stipulation on that?
But no, I mean, hey, if you're going to be in studio,
I almost sent him a text yesterday that said, hey, Mark will be pissed if you show up in your jersey. But then I also figured he listens to the show, so he probably knows not to come sublimated.
This is correct. All right. So Chris Zaldain coming up here right after the commercial break. And folks, I want you to pay attention to the very first commercial that we run. It is a brand new spot from Lowrance. They are doing something that's pretty cool. If you don't like it, in 30 days, send it back. They'll give you your money back. Check out the spot. Do you know about that, Matthew?
No.
It's good stuff.
That was kind of what happened when I started doing the show. You gave me 30 days. And you said, if you're not good, you got to give me the money back.
Wow. All right, everybody, check that spot out. We're coming back with Chris Zaldain in studio. Everybody, stay tuned.
Are serious about catching fish, that HDS is a dead giveaway. You've got the best fish finding sonar money can buy. Time to build the ultimate fish finding system with live sight sonar. See what your lure is doing in real time. Watch fish strike as it happens. See for yourself. Take the Live Sight Sonar 30-day challenge. If Live Sight Sonar doesn't help you find and catch more fish, send it back, no questions asked.
Gamakatsu, the G Finesse series.
In my opinion, the G Finesse series is the only lineup of hooks you need for any fishing you do.
But I know a lot of guys haven't used this hook yet. The G Finesse series has the nano coat on the hooks. And the nano coating makes the hooks sharper, smoother, for a better hookup ratio. 20% stronger than black nickel. Wow, that is incredible. That's a lot of strength.
My Gamakatsu G Finesse series, perfect finesse fishing for you.
Check out the G Finesse series of hooks by Gamakatsu. Guys, Gerald Swindle, Sunline Pro Staff. If you're a flipper, a slackline hook setter, you're really putting a lot of impact into your hook set, look for the shooter. It comes off the smooth, really smooth. Like when you're flipping, it is smooth. If you're gonna be drop shotting and cranking, Sniper's the deal, man. It seems like it's a little bit less likely, like on a sharp hook set, it doesn't seem like it likes it as much. But for coming off the spool on spinning rod, leaders, cranking, like if I'm gonna throw a big plug at Gunnersville, I've still got strong tensile strength. It's not gonna give out on me, but yet the line's thin enough it'll get down. So to me, shooter takes a hook set, Snipers for everything else. So if you're gonna slack line them, go shooter.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
Hey guys, Cliff Perch here with AFCO. I've got the new Camo Hooded Reaper. It's going to be a great thing both for fishing and hunting this fall. I can tell you a couple of the features about it. Got the face mask like all the Reapers do, vented in front. It's got the fleece on the inside, so it's really comfortable. It's super warm. When you come down to the pocket, it's got this little snap system called Block Tapey, and it's silent. You know, it doesn't make that sound that other snaps and other systems that hook it together make. Great for hunting, and it's going to keep that stuff in your pocket.
I got my power pole down, stuck in the mud in the bottom of the lake, sitting so still in the wind and the waves, could even be a hurricane. I got my power pole down.
All right, we are back, kicking off the week here on a Monday. A very, very special show right here from our studios. You see him sitting there right there, the man in studio, Mr. Chris Zaldain. Chris, thanks for coming and taking part of this madness.
Hey, wouldn't miss it for the world, guys. Matt, Mark, I've been a long-time listener and watcher, and what an amazing studio.
Cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. Trait's up there fishing the Grand Lake Open here this week, so she's practicing. and she's tuned in this morning. So hey, Trait, out there graphing around, out there deep, but awesome studio. I walk in, the first thing I see is all this sporting memorabilia. Looking at a Wayne Gretzky, photo here. He's got the Easton aluminum hockey stick. That used to be the most sought after hockey stick way back then.
Yeah.
It was like
the silver. You didn't even see the Curtis Joseph signed goalie stick
Cujo.
in the room. We had to lock Izzy into the other studio because Nebo had to come in, Chris and Trait's dog. But then he was a little too nervous in here, so now he's in the truck with the truck running, air conditioning on. Izzy's locked in the other room, and we're
good to go.
BTL.
Glad to be here.
We're good to go. All right, man. First, I want to hit you up. First thing, what are your thoughts about the movement from Fort Gibson to Lake Tenkiller?
Yeah, we're winding down the Bassmaster Elite Series season. 2 tournaments left, sitting third in AOI. So we're keeping a close track on, first of all, the rescheduling. I think the Fort Gibson tournament was supposed to occur back in May due to high water. They moved it to here in September, and just recently they announced we're moving to the lake to the venue to Tenkiller. My initial thoughts right off the bat, right when I heard of it, I immediately thought smallmouth right off the bat. But I was up in New York catching smallmouth, so I'm thinking, another mixed bag tournament. Going back to Cayuga just last week or whatever it was, we're catching big smallmouth on the final day. But then I thought, well, no, this is going to be a September tournament, and typically you catch the smallmouth on Lake Tenkiller in February, March, kind of April. So we'll see what happens. But I do know the lake water levels will be lower than what Fort Gibson potentially would be. And we'll just see a lot more fish catches. By the way, Matt, it is a 16-inch smallmouth, largemouth limit and a 12-inch spotted bass limit.
I got that right.
That's a pretty big fish.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about this move is there were some cancellations last year and moves last year, and it just seemed like it was just a debacle. This seemed like, it really wasn't even on our radar, like, hey, they might move or this. It was just like all of a sudden you log on and it's like, boom, changes made. Like, how did that process go down this year as opposed to, as an angler, you kind of went through what happened on the Chesapeake Bay last year.
Yep.
Did Bass learn from stuff? Was there angler input? How did that change kind of happen?
There were a lot of peed off anglers, no doubt, after Chesapeake, after practicing all week, and just opened up the floor for any complaining angler to say, hey, look, this isn't right. We spent all this money up here, so let's try to figure something out. Props to the Bass officials, Bass management. They dedicated this week, middle of September, as a makeup week. If we have flooding, if a lake goes dry, okay, we're going to dedicate the middle of September for a makeup tournament week before Angler of the Year is crowned, and here we are. So they did a great job of consulting anglers, consulting management, consulting the venue, like I said, here we are. Third in points. I'm looking forward to it.
Did they do the same thing from the Gibson to the Tenkiller then, or was that like you just kind of were like, because it seems like they're acting very decisively in this. Would you not say, Mark? There hasn't been, it might get moved. Where else is it going to move? Like I said, it was just like you wake up, okay, it seemed boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, so it was, it was changed from May to September, and they kept a close watch on not only the water levels but also, kind of water movement, and we all saw the footage of those 2 barges getting sucked underneath that dam along the Arkansas River chain. And matter of fact, right now they've got all the dams closed above that where those barges went under, and they're removing the barges and so forth. So once those barges get removed along that Arkansas River system, they're probably going to move all that water through there. Not only will the fishing suffer, but the water levels and we want a good show, right?
Hey, Andy in Indiana has a really good question on the instant feedback. Because of this sudden movement, Chris, would you know what would happen if for some reason guys were on Tenkiller before the cutoff and they were doing, video work, or they were doing recreation, or they were just out there having a good time or whatever?
Then.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great question and great thought, and yeah, absolutely, they got lucky. It's when it was announced to the 75 anglers, Elite Series anglers, it was text message form. It was email form. Our event has been moved to Lake Tenkiller. Tenkiller is now off limits. Big, capital letters. Tenkiller is now off limits. So
Gotcha.
if you did any work prior to, we were in that 30-day period, whatever it is, then there you go.
Hang on one second. What's your history on that lake?
Yeah, I've been there, I think 3 times. Trait has had opens along the Arkansas River, so during those weeks I just go up there and throw big swim baits and things like that. And I've caught several smallmouth there in March, April. I think I was there in May or June one time, but largemouth, I've caught big largemouth there, 5.5 pounders on my little mag draft, skipping under bushes and things like that. So reminds me of those lakes out in California, deep, clear, rocky, largemouth, smallmouth option. I think it's going to be a really good one going into AOY the week after.
That was my question. You look at your history of top 10 finishes, and obviously not the most recent Lanier, which was a spotted bass deal, but also has largemouth in it. And you go back and look at Cayuga, that's a mixed bag. Bull Shoals, that's a mixed bag deal. Cayuga again, that's a mixed bag. West Point, that could be Bull Shoals.
Yep.
I mean, you have Shasta, Clear Lake, all these that have mixed species. I mean, this seems to be way more in your wheelhouse than Fort Gibson, having been on both fisheries. Would you, if you thought at the beginning of the year, hey, I'm going to be on Tenkiller at the end of September, that wasn't even on your radar. Now here you are in the middle of an Angler of the Year hunt. Is this kind of setting up perfect for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was a pleasant surprise. It was, in my head, Fort Gibson was going to be a tough grinder tournament, 5-6 bites a day, shallow square bill and 83 degree temperature stained water. I didn't grow up doing that kind of stuff. We had some of it on the Delta, but it was going to be a grinder tournament with mud fishing mud. So when they announced that it went to Tenkiller, we're opening it up to deep swim baits, jerk bait, clearer water, which is drop shotting in my wheelhouse. So it was definitely a pleasant surprise when I heard they moved it, no doubt. And going to Cayuga just a couple weeks ago, I started the tournament out fishing largemouth, and on the fly, day 3, halfway through day 3, I'm like, man, this largemouth thing is suffering. We're gonna have to make the right adjustments and actually target smallmouth. So if that kind of opportunity comes into play on Tenkiller, I'll be right on top of it.
Very nice. All right, I want to let everybody know the instant feedback. We're going to have Chris here. We're actually going to take a phone call.
Yeah, we're
right,
going to split segments up. So Dean Silvester, and this was kind of spur of the moment, dudes from Australia.
Yeah.
I know we have Carl on. Dean's like he's like, hey, do you have a weird Australian fetish? Because I was like friends with the 2 Aussies. I'm like, no. So I ended up becoming friends with Dean at the 2017 Bass Nation on Hartwell. Our boats were parked next to each other in the yard. The guy ended up beating me. It was the second time he'd ever fished for bass, and I went up to him and I was like, how the hell does someone who doesn't even have bass in their country come over and beat all these guys that have it? And he's like, hey, mate, this is what I want to do. So then he comes back over. He spends a boatload of money, spends like 2 weeks over here, rents a U-Haul truck that literally says U-Haul, drives up to a deal in South Carolina, rents a boat, gets like Rick Clunn's Nitro from 2 years ago, goes up, stays by himself in a hotel, fishes Oneida for 2 weeks, and then goes finishes second in the Open, wins 17 grand, barely breaks even, and now flies out today back to Australia.
So he's calling us.
Yeah, that's a hell of a story. So he's going to call us because he's got an Australian number. So we're going to take a break, talk to him a little bit. It's really interesting.
Well, I'm going to keep an eye on the call.
Well, I told him around 10.
Okay.
But I told him I'd text him.
Okay. So I'll keep an eye on that.
Should I have him call in or
no? In the meantime, I was just going to let everybody know I'm going to try to get to as many of the instant feedback questions with Chris. So that interruption that we had,
Dean, I'll say call in 5, then you get 3 or 4 questions out of the way.
All right. Hey, Mike in New York wants to know how your fun fishing day on Onondaga was.
Oh, Mike, you must have been there or seen me out there. I tried to do it under the radar, and Lake Onondaga, for those who don't know, it's what, as the crow flies, 6-7 miles from Oneida, something like that. Maybe 10 miles from Oneida. It's full of largemouth or some smallmouth in there. It's typically a grass lake. For whatever reason, this year, Lake Oneida and Onondaga doesn't quite have the weed growth in it. So whenever you have that situation, location, whether you're down in Alabama or California, Texas, whatever. We're like, oh, I'm going to go here and I'm going to grass fish, and there's no grass there. You got to switch gears right off the bat. So, I cut the chatterbaits off, and I cut the, buzzbaits and frogs off, and I kind of switched gears, went to a jerkbait, and went to, just regular Senko, and then just like a build crankbait, little Megabass S crank. I caught him pretty good. I think I had 18, 19 pounds, something like that. So a lot of 4-pounders there, and without the grass, without the grass growth there, a lot of those big fish were exposed. So once you kind of figured that out, it was like, okay, there's no grass, so what do we fish now? Little contour breaks and little hard spots, and I caught them pretty good. It was fun.
All right, Brad in East Tennessee wants to know about how many days a year do you spend on the water?
It's funny you bring that up, Brad. We are right smack dab in the middle of just a crazy run. I think in the last 8 weeks we've had 6 tournaments up there in New York. I think I fished 24 days straight. I had 2 top 10s at St. Lawrence River and Cayuga, so it was like 14 days straight of that. I had some sponsorship obligations. Megabass came up. We had a good time fishing the Big Lake, Ontario. I had some friends from California. Shout out to Dave and Steve from Cali that came out. We fished, but 24 days straight. Man, this year it's been awesome. But I'm one of those guys where, like, whether it's hockey or whatever it is, the more time I spend on the ice, the more time I spend on the lake, the better I'm just in tune. And it seems like whenever I put the boat in the water at a new place, it's like, okay, let's try a little bit of what we did at this completely other different lake on this lake. And I've got the confidence, in the back of my head, like, oh, this lure or this technique was working, at this other place. Let's try it here. And I just try to keep it rolling from there. But it's been a busy year, no doubt. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, Andy in Indiana wants to know, you've been so close in winning a tournament. What's going to happen the first time that you do win one?
Andy, man, every time we're in contention, we go on stage and our friend Dave Mercer goes, you've been so close so many times, and man, it almost hurts. I mean, I've been on the Elite Series for 8 years now, and I've got an AOI win, I've got an Open win as a co-angler, but I do not have an Elite Series win, and AOI win, I mean the AOI tournament, not AOI. But I actually had to Google earlier this season. I literally Googled in the Google search bar how to close, and and all these different articles and audiobooks. I downloaded an audiobook, how to close, yes, and I didn't learn anything from it. But man, 4-day tournaments when so much is changing, it's just, man, it's so hard. I don't care who you're fishing against, whether it's a new group of rookies, veterans, I don't care who you're fishing against. It's all on you to execute on the final day or execute on day 3 and day 4. And it's not like I've had some stumbles on day 4, but this year I've had 2 seconds and a third, and I think both of those seconds I caught them on day 4. Like I had 18 pounds at Lanier, I had 18 or 19 pounds at Gunnersville. It's not like I left the door. It's like, man, I caught them today.
And the classic.
Yeah. Like I caught them, and it's like you come to the weigh-in at the, and this year we're trying some new things where we're not looking at Bass Track, and we want the suspense to be there. And I literally thought I had a chance at those tournaments. I just got beat that day. Paul Mueller beat me. He had over 18 pounds that day. Jamie Hartman beat me on Gunnersville. He had bigger bag that day. So you just got to keep every single day for 4 days. When the conditions change, you got to change with them and just try to be better than the next guy. And I haven't done that yet. So I think once it happens, though, I think it'll just start rolling in, hopefully.
So this goes back to conversations we've had for a month then. So, and this is not a dig at you, Mark, then. Do you consider these tournaments then successes or failures? Because, I mean, you get to a point where you have stated multiple times you want to win it. You said, I'm going out, I'm doing the regular thing to try to win it. You say, I'm going for the big bag, I'm trying to win it. When you're done with it, I mean, we've watched that final 9 minutes on Gunnersville where it's just agonizing. You're saying, I blew it right there. So do you consider that a success or failure when you're in the truck going to the next derby?
In the moment, obviously, an hour after the tournament, it's definitely a failure. You feel like, man, I did all I could for 4 whole days straight, and I didn't come up with a win. But then, you're like, okay, well, this was a great points tournament. You get those text messages, oh, I know it's not the finish you wanted, it's not the win you wanted, but hey, heck of a showing anyway. And those text messages actually help. And trait, oh, it's a great tournament, great showing, and everything, but man, I need to win one, man. I really do. I've been so close so many times.
Follow up to that, John wants to know if you had 20 more minutes at Guntersville, could you have closed it out?
John, I needed 3 more minutes. I'm not joking you. The video's up on Instagram, YouTube, and the Bassmaster site, where it was a spot, and I got to give props to this is really cool how I room with John Cruz, Ed Lochran, sometimes Caleb Summerall and Derek Hudnall, but the cool thing about staying with different guys is, throughout the course of the tournament or practice, you get to, to bounce things off of certain guys. And I remember Ed Lochran, good friend, on Thursday, the first day of the tournament, he's like, man, I got this spot where I caught a 6-pounder, and there's a couple more there. And during the time, I'm like, well, I got my own spot where I think I could do really well. For 3 whole days, my spot that I was catching them on was awesome, on fire. And I think I was in second or first going to that final day. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh yeah, Ed told me about this one little area, and I was sucking on day 4. Maybe I should go try it. And I went and checked it out, and I idled over it, and I looked at my hummingbirds, and I saw them just they were down there. Set up a cast, and like for every single cast, it seemed like in my head for 9 minutes or whatever it was like I either got a piece of one, I hooked one in the back, or one swiped at it, or I caught a giant. For about 9 minutes straight, and I just needed 2 or 3 more minutes. And I was thinking in my head, man, let's take the late penalty, 1 minute per or 1 pound per minute penalty. And I'm like, dude, I've got 2 little ones in here, and let's take the penalty. But heck, these are big ones. These are 4 or 5, 6 pounders. Yeah. Let's try to get one, and I just didn't have the time.
All right, let's do this.
We got Dean.
I think we have Dean on the phone, and then we're going to get back to the other questions on the instant feedback. Dean, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Dean,
you're live.
How are you?
Doing good, man. Great job at Oneida Lake, man.
Thank you very much, sir. It was it was a lot of fun, that's for sure.
All right, let me set it up then. I said it before we brought it on. So Dean is really good in Australia. Like, we've been through the whole Carl thing, which is another thing, because now Dean's trying to follow in the footsteps of somebody who's come over there. So now it's twice as hard for Dean to make it. But he's won all the same stuff over there. He comes over to the Bass Nation Championship. It's on Lake Hartwell. We're staying next to each other. He kicks all the Americans' butts. It's the first time he's ever bass fished. He's on the water Googling Aaron Martin's drop shotting to figure out how to tie up a drop shot so he can fish it. And then he finds this topwater thing where they were like swiping at all of our topwaters. And then Dean's like, oh, look, the herring make this subsurface wake. Let's weight my topwater so it wakes the exact same. And he like smokes everyone, almost makes the classic, does it. Then like sells his house, everything he owns, comes over, flies over like 5 times this year to the Opens, finishes in the top 20 in the point standings, and then finishes second at Oneida. $17,000. They take all the taxes out, and he breaks even, and now he's flying home tomorrow. Pretty accurate, Dean?
Pretty much. That sums it up. Thanks for the chat. I'll see you later.
I know, you just said everything for him, Matt.
But I didn't say that. But what I wanted to do was have you on to talk about what it's like to experience what you just experienced working for the last 5 years to be able to fish on the final day of that Eastern Open on Oneida and sit up there on the hot seat for so long.
It's hard to describe because it's such a hectic, logistical nightmare to get over here and do everything. And I'm here basically like a 3-week cycle for each event, and you're sort of rushing around, doing everything. You're organising something, you're picking up something, you're dropping something off, and before you know it, you're going home. So it's hard to believe that 2.5 weeks ago I was trying to get a U-Haul truck to get from Atlanta to Piedmont to go and pick up a boat, and now I'm back in South Carolina. I've dropped the boat off, and now I've got to go back home. So it happened so quick. But sitting sitting on the hot seat was pretty crazy. And to make it through till second, I didn't think, with who was there behind me, I thought I might get to sit in the hot seat for at least one angler, but I didn't think I'd make it all the way through to second place.
All right, I'm curious, and I ask this question a lot to people that have done very well in tournaments. What was really something that you did very well during that entire week?
Well, it was frustrating and exciting for me at the same time. So I learned how to chatterbait with Matt in Oklahoma, I think last year. Was the first time I got to use it. And then every tournament that we had in the Open Series this year, I had a really good chatterbait bite going in practice. And by the time the tournament rolled around, for whatever reason, boat pressure or whatever else, because I don't understand the chatterbait deal much myself, but it didn't work, and I had to work out something new as soon as the tournament started. So practicing for Oneida, I messed around with a few things because I'd only fished a smallmouth once before at Champlain, so all I really knew was white reaction baits and topwater, because that's what I caught them on in Champlain, as well as the Zoom speed crawl on a Carolina rig. So I went out, practiced a bit, caught a few on a Carolina rig, caught a few drop shotting, but the better fish I was catching were on topwater, and I couldn't understand when I missed the topwater fish. I messed around in the grass and I could not get a bite. So did a bit of research online about the perch that they like to eat and stuff. So that night, laying in bed, I watched a few things about perch, and then I watched a few videos. They were catching them on chatterbait, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't be throwing a white chatterbait. So I went about 10 o'clock at night, went out, and I found the Height Delight, which is like a green pumpkin, bit of clear with chartreuse belly, and I thought that's a perch thing, and I tied it on, and then I went back to bed. And so next morning, everywhere I had a topwater blow up, I cycled like 5 to 6 casts of the 5 baits I had, like a spinnerbait, the chatterbait, jerkbait, because I practiced by myself. And then I caught my first fish on the chatterbait, and it was deep, and it's like he ate that thing. So I figured I'm going to just throw this for a little while and see what I can work out. And nearly every like pin buoy line or grass edge line, 50% of them I could catch a 3.5 to 3.8 smallmouth on a chatterbait, and they ate it whole. So it was exciting for me, but all I was seeing was every other open that I have already fished this year where I get on a chatterbait deal and it doesn't work. So although I'd worked it out, I was trying my hardest for the next 3 days to find something else because I didn't want to have to do that.
But that's what you ended up catching them on.
Yeah, so same deal, every open. So I fished all my practice in the wind, in the rain, crazy, horrible weather. First day of the open, Oneida is bluebird skies and not a breath of wind for the entire day. So I caught my first fish on a chatterbait within the first couple of minutes, and I thought, this is good, it's going to still work. And then that was it. So I had a little topwater deal right down the western end, eastern end, sorry. Went all the way down there, caught 2 small ones on topwater, so I had 3, and then from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, never had a bite. Finally got onto another fish on topwater, so I had 4, and then we started to get a little bit of breeze, and so I just need to go back to this chatterbait, and then I think I got another 3 or 4 on a chatterbait and got rid of my smaller one for the first day.
I'm sitting here watching Chris listen to you talk and break this down. Now, Chris, you've
technical, dude.
You've been through this whole thing. I mean, coming from the West Coast, you're one of those guys. Everyone was looking at you in the FLW series out there, going, "God, this guy's finishing in the top 10 of everything." Yeah. You kind of know a little bit, and Dean's limited experience in America. Is that impressive to you on how his strategy to breaking down these new fisheries he's never seen before?
Yeah, matter of fact, I know Dean. We talked last week, and dude, super technical fisherman, and you know, Matt made the comparison yesterday, like, we're gonna have Dean on the show tomorrow. This guy's the most technical fisherman I've ever. He makes Aaron look like a
weekend
a bumpkin,
yeah,
you know, and
like a hack.
No, so that's really cool, and I think it's your background in catching the Australian bass. I think it's more they're a very reactionary bass, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of spinner baits, a lot of jerk baits, hard baits type stuff. So that's really cool to see and listen to you break it down, and and actually watch you break it down is really cool. I got a question for you though, Dean. Man, that's a heck of an investment, heck of a, that's a lot of time away from home. Is your goal to qualify for the Elite Series, or was the Opens kind of like a, let's go see what, U.S. fishing's all about, this whole bass fishing thing? I saw Carl do it. Or are you trying to qualify for the Elites, and are you going to try to do it next year?
Well, long story short, like, I've done a lot of tournament fishing and stuff in Australia, and we had Bass Nation in Australia, so that's where I got to come across and do the Nation Championship 3 times. I did the teams twice and the singles one once. But I've been fortunate enough. I'm sponsored by Quantum, and I got to do a few media events. That's where I met Matt originally, and I got to speak to people like Gerald and KVD. And when I first started talking to Gerald about it, that's where I sort of got a little bit of motivation to come across here and compete to make the Elites, because I've sort of done as much as I can in Australia, and you can't make a living out of it. And as much as I really, really love fishing, I more love the competitive side of fishing. If you asked me that at like 1 o'clock on day one of Oneida, I would have said I don't like it anymore. But that's the part of it that I need. So yes, the goal was to come across and see if I could make the Elites. But this year was more about, I wanted to do, last year I did 2 Opens just to get a feel for what it's going to take me to get over here, what I need to do, etc., what the expenses are. And then this year I thought I'll do 1 full season, see how I am. Because my thing in Oz was more about consistency. I wouldn't necessarily win everything, but I was fairly consistent, and AOY was sort of a thing that I could achieve a bit in Oz. So I wanted to see how a season rolled out. Rather than come over and do one event and either do well or fail, I wanted to see overall where I would come. And I sort of underestimated my expenses. This season cost me about 43,000 Aussie dollars just to do the 4 events. So
wow.
It's really tough now to work out whether I can afford to actually attempt to qualify for the Elites.
Well, you're off to a good start, because the first time we had Polinick on, I think Jeffries misspelled his name. And we had the Y up there instead of the I. So if you followed his footsteps, you're good to go. It's back to I.
Cool. Nice.
So you fly out then today?
Yep. I'm running through GoPro footage now, trying to get myself organised, and then I'll drive and get rid of the U-Haul and get an Uber to the airport and see you later.
All right.
I mean...
Very cool.
The thing that comes to my mind on this is there's a lot of guys out there like, I would fish the Opens if, I would do that if.
Yeah, right.
I mean, dude, look at his story. And there's been some stuff written on it. Like, there's a lot of reasons for him not to be over here fishing the Opens. Yeah. He doesn't have a boat.
No doubt.
He's not a loaded dude. He lives in Australia. It's not like he's doing it all himself. He's driving a U-Haul truck here. So, I mean, I'm looking at it as like an inspirational story to be like, listen, where there's a will, there's a way. Would you? I mean,
no, absolutely.
That's kind of how you did it too. I mean, I remember when I met you, you had
I gave it all up.
You had a ratty. Was it a bass cat?
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll get into that in a minute.
No,
we'll save that.
Okay.
All right.
No, I admire your work ethic though, Dean. Just at Oneida last week when the weather started turning, it started getting cold, nasty, and you were still in the parking. Your trailer, your boat, your wrapped U-Haul. Your wrapped U-Haul was in the parking lot.
I like to think
with
U-Haul.
An empty trailer. Yeah, right. And so
when you got sponsorships from like people like U-Haul, they're very demanding. So you got to put in a lot of work.
I hear you.
Jeez. All right, man.
That's it.
We greatly appreciate you spending a couple of minutes and kind of filling us in. But great job, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate being on this show. I do have to say one thing to someone, and Matt will know this guy. He's my number one fan, and I think he's probably more of a BTL fan than myself. That's Sean Haynes, and he said, don't be scared to give him a shout-out on BTL. So
heck yeah, he sends me messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awake listening just for this show. So
very cool. Great shout-out. Well, hopefully you get some leg room. I know you're always big on the leg room on the flight home. You're always either upset or very happy with the leg room that you get.
Well, you got to do the little things, That's what I got to look forward to.
How tall are you? Is it metric system? Or how tall are you in SAE standards?
6'4".
6'4".
6'4".
So what's that in?
I'm about my legs are about 12 inches too long for every plane built.
Yeah.
And how long is that flight?
Well, to get over here took me about 30-something hours because I had 3 delayed flights and 1 cancelled flight and etc. But getting home, fingers crossed, should take me about 22.
Yikes.
And you'll be fishing again when?
Maybe Thursday. I land Wednesday. Might go fishing Thursday.
That's awesome. All right.
Thanks, dude.
Dean, man, be careful going home. And
Thank you very much.
Hey, man, we'll have you on later on down the road.
Sure, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks for fixing the spelling of my name, too. That's awesome.
All right, yeah, I got it worked out there. Sorry, man. All right, see ya. All right, there you have it.
I had to call you out there looking at us trying to do Pictionary over here.
I couldn't hear you. I didn't know.
But seriously, how impressive is that?
Oh, dude, it's that's a lot of sacrifice, man. I mean, I thought I was giving up a lot coming from California to fish Missouri, Texas, and Oklahoma, making that drive. Dude, 22 hours, 30 hours, come a flight. I mean, that's unreal.
I believe, now I could be wrong, but I believe, Chris, the very first interview maybe that you ever did was you were actually a guest on this show. And one of the questions that I asked you was, dude, you're leaving everything behind. You're quitting your job. You
awesome,
want to do this. This is what you want to do. And
was that kind of a warning? I think you were kind of warning me.
No. Well, you made really good money with your job that you did.
I did, yeah. No, I was a technician at a semiconductor company there in the Silicon Valley, Northern California. But you guys gave me a shot. I mean, I don't know why you guys picked me, but you guys gave me a shot, and I appreciate that, Mark and Matt. I've been, a listener ever since, and man, that was way back in
long time.
Because I remember it was
11?
it was I was fishing a Bass Nation and I was staying at Fred's house.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
And I called you before because I was doing articles at Bass Zone, and it was like you had 6 or 7 top 10s in a row in the Western Division of the FLW series back then. What did they call it then or something?
FLW series.
The FLW series. So I did this article. And then, it just so happened, a couple months later, I was staying at Fred's because he was in Broken Arrow at the time. And then you were
passing
through to go to an open the first year of fishing the opens, and Fred was like, "Oh, Chris is gonna stay too."
Yep.
And I was like, "Dude, I had just talked to him on the phone."
Being from California.
And then you roll up, and I'm like, "This thing made it from California."
Dude, yeah. But, I scratched and clawed and just, did everything I could to make it work, and here we are.
All right, let's get to the instant feedback. Scott in Virginia wants to know, can you quickly explain your finesse swim bait setup that you've been using for a lot of the time during the year?
Yeah, man, a lot of people know me for the mag draft, the 6 and the 8-inch mag draft, and I think I've won more money on the finesse swim bait. I like that little 3-inch spark shad, and from start to finish, 3-inch megabass spark shad, 1/4 ounce ball head or 3/8 ounce ball head. Smaller the hook, the better. You don't need a big 3/0 hook in it. If you could find a 1/0 or 2/0 hook, that's better, simply because it allows a swim bait to swim. Okay, the longer the hook, the longer the shank in the body of the swim bait, the more it's restricted. So the smaller the hook, the better. 1/4 or 3/8 ounce ball head. Seaguar line is I mean, that's imperative. 15-pound, really, really thin braided smackdown. 8-pound test, Tatsu leader. 1, 2, 3 pulls off the spool, FG knot, through an adder mine, spinning rod, and that's it's a 6'11", I think, the adder mine. A little bit stiffer than your drop shot rod. Real fast action for those bomber casts, and just a real slow. When you get a bite, I mean, they get it. So a little faster action than normal, and then just a 2500 or a 3000 size reel, and just slow and low, man. I mean, you find a piece of structure, whether it be a brush pile or a rock drop off. Recently, it's been long flats with a drop off rock. Cast to it, let it hit the bottom, just past it, and just slow wind it back. If you hit a rock, just give it one little pop. It's almost like a crankbait as it deflects off. And man, that's when they get it. Largemouth or smallmouth or spotted bass like at Lake Lanier. I mean, that's just a deadly, deadly technique. The biggest thing I can tell you with that, it's more than just a setup, equipment setup. Is you always want to set your boat up to almost like you're fishing off the bank or fishing on a dock that isn't. You cannot move your boat. boat positioning is so important when you're, a 2-minute, 3-minute cast sometimes. Bomber cast, low and slow, your boat cannot be moving. So spot lock, that's a big, big deal.
And we've seen what you did, what Paul Mueller's done, what Brian Thrift has done with that, what Scott Martin's done with that. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but and I know you said boat positioning is important, but it seems like in that technique with the light and that little bait, the entire setup, like there's other lures where like it's where you throw in the angle, but you can do it with a bunch of different, like you could do it with a Zebco 33, but it seems like those little finesse swim baits, though it's true, you get bit with it, but it seems like the finesse swim bait, like the setup is super crucial to making the bait work properly.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I know some guys like from Florida, Alabama, from the South, when they go up north to St. Clair, to, St. Lawrence River, they'll try to use a bait caster on some of these setups, but dude, a 1/4 ounce trocar ball head or whatever it is, 1/4, 3/8 ounce, the lighter the line, the better. So the only way you could, effectively fish a 1/4 ounce ball head is with a spinning setup. So you got to get used to that spinning rod. Okay, it's that some guys go up there with a 30-pound braid and a 12-pound leader. That's just too heavy. You have a parachute effect. Okay, you need the straightest line from your rod tip to that 1/4 ounce ball head. The straighter the better. If you have this parachute effect, you're going to miss bites. You're going to not feel the bites, and it also provides lift. So the thinner the line, the less water drag there is to it, and a more connected feel you have of that bait, especially down there 25, 35 feet of water. So thinner the line, the more bites you get. And again, it's not because they can't see the line, or it's not because I'm afraid that they're going to see it. It's, there's just less water restriction there, so the bait appears more naturally. And when you're targeting those 5-6 pound smallmouth that have been alive for 10, 11, 12 years, they're smart. They know. They know what a fake piece of plastic looks like. They know what a real bait fish looks like. So we're trying to imitate that bait fish just to a T. And that's how you convince those big, those big, huge smallmouth or big, huge largemouth into biting, is you got to make it look as real as possible.
All right, I'm kind of selfish on this question. From an education standpoint, I want to know, and it also kind of ties in to a question that Brad from Tennessee has. You've had so many days where you were throwing the big swim bait and just absolutely smashing them. And then the next day you go out and you can't catch squat. Do you try and downsize when that happens? And what happened, and why wouldn't you downsize?
Downsizing a swim bait is like throwing a completely different lure. It really is. So like an 8-inch swim bait, for example, that mag draft I like throwing, or the 6-inch even, is a pretty big piece of meat. Like the Classic, for example, I had an awesome day 2, and it's a Classic. You got to go for the win on the final day. So I kept that swim bait in my hand the whole time. I knew I wasn't getting the bites. I knew something changed. I knew something was different. I kept that swim bait in my hand the whole time. I've had comments like, oh, why didn't you downsize? Why didn't you throw something else? So downsizing a larger than normal swim bait would be, to me, it's like, it's throwing a completely different bait. So I hardly ever downsize. I would just go to something else. If they're not biting the big swim bait, I'm gonna have to go to a jig or a shaky head or a Neko rig or whatever it is.
Do you think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they downsize with the swim bait?
Yeah, that's the thing, is we're targeting larger than normal bass with the big swim bait, and I've sent you some, and Matt throws the 6-inch version, and man, you are targeting a completely different mood of fish, a completely different class of fish. We're talking about the big ones. So if you're going to throw a swim bait, make it worth it and throw that big giant one. No, I'm dead serious. If you have a bass, a 6 or 7 pounder on a lay down with a little bit of current, a little bit of shade right there, man, I've seen it time and time again. That fish right there owns that piece of structure. It lives there because it's smart, it's big, it's huge, and it wants something that big because it never sees something that big. It's seen a million spinner baits, crank baits, that flipping jig, and it may say, oh, I've been caught by that before. I truly believe they attack that larger than normal fake piece of plastic because they don't see it, and it just looks appealing and real to them. So a lot of times I get the question, when you see the followers or you get short strikes and things like that, how do you switch up? Well, I don't think, any other lure in my tackle box will get that reaction out of that huge fish that we're targeting. So it
Makes
sucks.
sense.
It really
Yeah.
sucks. But what I like to do is they're not biting it, or it showed itself, it came up, and I'm throwing the big swim bait. I'll come back like an hour later and say that's where that fish was, and I'll just throw something super tiny in there, something super finessey. And,
Okay.
you thought I was going to say something else.
Yeah.
I'll throw something a little bit different, or change the angle of that swim bait. Maybe
All right.
cast it against the current. Or
All
something.
right, back on the previous question, Craig in New York wants to know, and I don't know if
That's
you
my
said it
buddy
or
Craig,
not, leader or no leader?
Definitely leader. Well, with the big swim baits, it's straight fluorocarbon. Either a 15-pound with a 6-inch version, or a 20-pound with the 8-inch version. But with the finesse swim bait, definitely a very, very thin braided line. Brand of your choice, super thin, and typically about an 8-pound test leader. And again, it's just 1, 2, 3 pulls off of the spool with an FG knot. If you haven't learned the FG knot, YouTube it, check it out. It's a super good knot. Matt, have you learned it yet?
I've just watched
Dabbling.
Aaron try to tie it for hours at a time by myself.
So the beauty of a FG knot, it's a lot of guys are starting to throw it compared to, let's say, like an Albright Special or Alberto knot. The Alberto knot, you've got to double it up. So if you think about it, you got to double up an 8-pound test. It's not that thin if you look at it, but it creates burrs and things in your line and going through your guides. An FG knot is elongated, and it's just a single strand of fluorocarbon, so it's not doubled up. So it's basically like a Chinese finger trap, and it works really well. And castability, we talked about that with the small swim, but you have to bomb cast it, and keep it down in the strike zone for the longest duration of your cast as possible.
It involves like a fly fishing vise, and then Aaron suggests you pour a glass of wine, put some Barry Manilow on, get some very direct lighting, mute your cell phone.
Absolutely. And what you mean by that is
he's like, there's 3 wraps, and then you wet it with the left side of your mouth, and then you gingerly. I have it. When I start breaking to uni, that's when I'll switch.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Dude, you're
though.
old school.
Yeah.
Uni to uni.
As I said, when I start breaking it, I'll switch.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll learn
I got
it.
you. I hear you.
Here's the weird thing to me. When the mag draft come out? 2011? 2012?
Yeah, way before it got cool.
When did people start asking you all these? Now, obviously you're West Coast, but you in the past year, it's like the mag draft's new and Chris Zaldain is a swim bait czar. Do you feel like that too? It's weird how a couple days.
Yeah, it's, all the swim bait questions and my inbox after the swim bait tournaments, and it all happened just after a series of a couple good years on the swim bait, and also a series of tournaments where it's pre-spawn. And growing up in California, look, I see the 8-inch Huddleston that Steve Kennedy used in California to win the Clear Lake. That whole swim bait thing is just, when you catch them on it, they're big fish. Everyone wants to catch big fish. The numbers thing with spinner baits and crankbaits and things like that, whatever. But big giant swim baits is something that when you see it on TV, I don't care who it is, you want to do it. You want to catch giants. And I think I was still with Strike King when the mag draft first came out. So I want to say 08, 09, something like that. And then when I left Strike King to do the whole not only megabass rods but baits as well, when they sent them to me, I'm like, oh wow, that thing is going to play at some point in time, and sure enough, it did.
Has it surprised you that there hasn't been a hard bait tournament? I mean, there have been, but there hasn't really been. Do you think there could be a glide bait tournament in the future, or is that bait so specific that it's going to be a part of a win and not something that they eat for 4 straight days?
Wow, that's really tough. I've tried. I've gone to the best lakes in the country and tried to do it for 2, 3, 4 days in a row. The whole glide bait thing, it's like an oversized jerk bait where it moves laterally left to right, and it gets some of the biggest bites in the lake, no doubt. To put it together 4 days in a row, that's really hard. The 20 fish you weigh in an Elite Series tournament or any other 4-day tournament, it would be so hard to weigh 20 for 20 on the glide bait, whether it's a 6-inch or an 8-inch or whatever it is. But the whole mag draft thing, the whole, I used to throw old school like osprey lures or Huddlestons, soft plastic. It's just it puts off a vibration in the water that just gets bites, And then the whole glide bait thing's more visual. It's less water disturbance, but it's more visual. Like, wow, that is a big piece of bait fish, and I want a piece of that, and it just looks right. Everything looks great to it, and it fools 10-pounders, no doubt. But to catch tournament-grade fish on it, it's not going to happen 4 days in a row.
All right, back to the instant feedback. Gene from Kentucky says, Chris, excellent season so far. He believes you're going to win soon, but he wants to know, do you think there is one specific thing that you need to change or do to stay on the same track and let you win?
Gene, that's a great question. Man, I fish best around chaos, around when I'm pissed off, whether it's, the traffic jam and the first thing in the morning, or someone steals my rods going into a tournament. When it's chaotic and I'm pissed off, like, I do very well. There's a lot of things that happen in the off season. I lost a lot of friends. The chaos. I didn't know what was around the corner, and I set goals to not only prove myself to the community, but prove myself to myself. And every single step along the way, it's like, we'll do this right. Little short steps. Do this right to achieve an overall goal. And to put it on, to answer your question, to place that on one specific thing, to change one specific thing, man, I don't know. If you guys could create chaos for me going into a tournament, steal my rods, whatever. I mean, it seems like when I set short-term goals for myself, like either that week or that day or that hour of the tournament, and say, this is the only thing that matters, let's kill this goal right now, and all of a sudden at the end of the day, at the end of the tournament, at the end of the season, we're where we need to be in that top, that top echelon there. Setting those small goals is a big thing for me.
All right, a couple things real quick. You mentioned chaos. Do you think that the chaos that this whole game was in this year actually kind of motivated you?
Oh my gosh, more than anything. Remember, Jeffries, you guys probably saw the show back in September, October of last year, when there was a little count on Bass Fan, and you guys were keeping track of all the guys who were moving on to shoot a TV show tour, and the guys who were staying at Bass, and we could talk about it, right? I mean, staying at the Bass Elite Series, and all these invites went out, and a lot of guys, hopped on the ship and set sail. And I remember you saying, do you feel lonely on that island?
Yeah.
You came out and said, you're going to stay with the Elite Series, and do you feel lonely? You're the only one. And turned out there were 5 other guys, so 6 guys total that received an invite to move on that stayed at the Elite Series. And that little island party we're having is fun. It's a lot of fun.
And it motivated you.
It motivated me. That was the question. It absolutely motivated me. And it's that whole chaos, like I said, it fuels me, and it keeps me going, and I can't complain. My sponsors are so happy with the way the season's gone, not only from my performance and my whatever it is, but as a whole, the organization as a whole. I mean, they are so happy, and one could say, you're doing good because the competition left, or your sponsors are happy because there's no competition. One could say that, but another person could say, well, maybe maybe the sponsors like the organization and what they're doing, where they're heading. It's a proven platform for how many years? Elite Series has been around 13 years. Bass has been around forever. It's a proven platform. So when these big companies start investing money and time and effort, where are they going to put their money? They're going to put it to where it's proven. And I've got the utmost confidence in Chase Anderson and his whole Bass team, and to constantly evolve. With all the changes, when the changes get thrown their way or our way, and the chaos ensues, set those little short goals and do those little things right, and all of a sudden at the end of the year, everyone's happy.
All right, interesting question here. I'm going to give you states, not bodies of water. All right, the schedule for 2020 has not come out yet. I want to know if you think, or better yet, that you would prefer to have an event in this particular state. I'm going to start out first one, Florida.
Okay, states.
Florida.
Ooh, my track record's not good down there, so I would skip Florida and go to either Georgia or Alabama.
Okay, California.
Yes, absolutely.
Missouri.
Yes, Table Rock comes to mind. The whole White River chain comes to mind. Really good fishing.
This is what he would want.
Yeah.
This
what I
isn't.
would
You're not like giving up the schedule.
No,
No. This is what I'm naming off states.
Okay, I got
and
it.
I'm
I was
asking you
confused.
whether you would prefer to go to this
Okay.
body of water. All right, North Carolina.
Yes, really.
It's been a while.
It's been a long. I've never fished in Northern Carolina, believe it or not. But
Wow.
what comes to mind is like clay banks and blueback herring and clear water. I love that kind of fishing.
Texas.
Oh yes, I live in Texas now, Fort Worth, Texas. Anywhere in Texas, whether it be South Texas near Mexico, North Texas where it gets cold in the wintertime. I love fishing Texas.
New Mexico.
Sure, why not? I've never been fish Mexico. What fisheries are there in New Mexico?
Elephant Butte?
Elephant Butte,
Yeah.
yeah. That used to be on the western, like open circuit, I believe.
Yeah.
Elephant Butte. That would be really cool.
Yeah, South Dakota.
Again, yes, absolutely. I think our good buddy Mark Zona just shot a TV show there in South Dakota. He says it was the stupidest fishing he's ever experienced. I'm sure he's told you.
All right, Ohio.
I heard Ohio's tough, so I'm going to say no.
How about Cleveland, though?
Cleveland, Lake Erie, absolutely. I've caught some mega smallmouth out there with the Cleveland skyline in the background. Yeah, absolutely.
Inland Ohio, I think is what Mark was referring to there.
Right.
Kentucky.
Kentucky. I don't think I've ever fished a tournament in Kentucky, but sounds cool. Yeah.
All right, last one, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, Tennessee, no doubt. There's one thing about Tennessee that, if you've never traveled there, when I grew up in California, it's real mountainous, beautiful, green, and pretty. And then when you drive along I-40 going, eastbound, it gets real just blank. New Mexico, parts of Texas and Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, real flat, real kind of deserty. And then, once you get past Texas going eastward, it's really just kind of plain looking. It gets real humid until you get to about Tennessee, and then the mountains come up again, right? It gets real kind of rocky. There's some bluff walls all through Tennessee. That's really cool, and the fishing's awesome in Tennessee.
All right, Sam in Connecticut wants to know, how come you don't fish the opens?
I'm around them all the time because my wife Trait fishes them.
That's why. That's what he said.
Yeah, and I like to, she's probably laughing right now. I'd say I like to return the favor and be the angler wife that week while she's out practicing hard, and I'm falling behind on my duties. I think last week at Oneida, I think I did laundry once. I don't think I cooked a single meal. I just got takeout the whole time. But when I'm at an open, I've already qualified for the Elite Series. And luckily I did it 1 year. I mean, that's crazy to think about now. But I truly believe the Bassmaster Opens are the stepping stone to get to the Elite. So myself as an Elite Series fisherman, I sit back and I'm a fan. I love to see the guys come up through the Opens and who do we need to look at. And but with Trait, she fishes them and she's learning every single time she puts the boat in the water. So that's really cool to see too. Her kind of the way she's evolving and women's fishing's evolving all through the Opens. And that's a cool thing about an Open. It's open to anybody, male, female, whatever. So that's the cool thing about the Opens, and I just kind of let her do her thing. I let those Opens guys do their thing, and I like to sit back and watch.
All right, man. Billy, Jake, Ken, David, they all want to know what's up with the mustache.
Dude, look, get a little close up on it.
It looks better than it did.
Yeah, I know. I trimmed it a little bit.
Did you dye it?
It looks better than it did when I announced it like 3 weeks ago. No, I didn't. St. Lawrence River, which was like 3 weeks ago now. I thought it was funny. I haven't shaved in a while. We were on this crazy run of tournaments and traveling, and I haven't shaved much. And I don't grow a lot of hair. You don't grow a lot of hair.
I do.
I'm a week in it. It's bad.
Yeah. So. I just had this crazy idea. Like, my buddies from California were in town, and we were about to start practice for St. Lawrence River. I was like, I need to shave this thing off. I was like, I think it'd be funny to just shave a mustache in it, right? Seth Fighter, good friend and awesome competitor on the Elite Series. He's had a mustache forever. And I'm like, you know what? We got a couple smallmouth derbies coming up. Maybe it's a mustache that attracts those big smallmouths. So I went ahead and cut a mustache in there, and man, it's here to stay.
Yeah,
Trait hates it.
The playoff mustache.
That's it. Playoff, and we're smack dab in the middle of playoffs, and the smallmouth love it.
I don't know whether Harold Allen would be disappointed or impressed.
All right. Hey, a number of people on the instant feedback want to know the adversity that you went through when your stuff got stolen. How tough was that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So for those who don't know, Lake Cayuga was the last tournament 2 weeks ago, and man, the thing that pisses me off the most is the time I spent on every single one of those spinning rods the night before the tournament. So we're at Lake Cayuga, and we're staying in what is it, Auburn, New York. Auburn, New York sounds cool on there's a lot of wineries and things like that around Lake Cayuga. It looks cool on paper, but it's kind of rough. It really is. But we were staying in a really it looked like a really safe neighborhood. I'm like a stickler at being safe and making sure everything's well lit. It was a really cool Airbnb rental, and there were 6 of us, 6 trucks, 6 boats staying there, and we got done with the meeting, spend 3 or 4 hours doing tackle, making sure every knot is like perfect, every bait's perfect. All my spinning gear was all on one side, and I did not lock my skeeter. That's one thing I regret. But out of the 6 boats staying there, 3 of us got hit, and like I said, seemed like a super safe house, backyard. The problem was dark. It was super pitch black dark, so it was kind of open to anyone that wanted to come up and take rods. And anyway, so I get to the ramp. I'm always the first one there. I get there about 2 hours ahead of takeoff time. I open up my rod locker just to tweak on a few things, and open up my rod locker, and there was like 1 bait caster in there. I'm like, oh my goodness, all my spinning rods are gone. Overall count, it was like half of my rods that were in my boat. We did a police report later, but as soon as I open up that rod locker, I look in, there was 1 bait caster left. I'm like, oh, and I didn't think, we're forgetful sometimes, like, oh, maybe I put my rods over here. I knew instantly I did not forget my rods somewhere. I knew right then and there someone jacked my rods. I'm like, oh.
It's the worst feeling.
Oh
man.
my gosh. Have you had it?
I had a truck and boat stolen from the UPS parking lot.
Dude, how does that happen?
I don't know.
You feel violated. It's like,
I was miserable.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does it? So I'm pissed off in the morning, and the next thing you know, Ed Lochran and Caleb Summer all come down the ramp. I'm like, dude, check your rod box. And they were staying at the house too, and as soon as they checked, they're like, oh, dropping F-bombs, and it sucked. It sucked. So for the next 45 minutes or so, hour, before the day one starts of Lake Cayuga, I'm sitting there piecing together this reel and that rod. And what was really cool is all the guys that came up, hey man, do you need, I made a social media post, and they were reading it, and hey, do you need any equipment, blah blah blah. So that was super cool of them, but it was chaotic that morning, and it sucked. And I put together 2 or 3 spinning rods, just a Neko rig and 2 deep swim bait finesse swim bait rods, and got the job done. So
all right, man, we're gonna have to have you on again, because there's still a ton of stuff on the instant feedback. And man, I want to wrap up the show. Matthew, I have a gift for Chris that I want to give it to him.
Really?
So why don't you?
Is it one of those old wiggle warts on the wall?
No.
How about the old Vixen?
No. I have a gift that I want to give to him, but I have to get up to get it. So could you carry on for just?
Is it in the studio?
Well, you can't see it. You can't see it. It's not that big a deal. It's just a
now
gesture.
We're hyping it up. Yeah.
It's just a gesture that I thought would be cool, because he's been so close so many times.
Oh man, here we go.
All right.
Well, go get it then.
I am.
We'll be fine.
Oh man, as I look around the studio here, I see
it's in the fridge.
Oh, it's in the fridge.
We've got an industrial fridge. Jeffrey's trade. What did you trade for an industrial fridge?
Hang on. Okay, this is a very, very special bottle of champagne. I only have 2 bottles, all right? And I thought it would be really, really cool to give you one of those champagne bottles that when you do get your first win, when you get back to the hotel room, or even if you get back home, I want you to taste and celebrate with this bottle of champagne, because we go way back, and that first show that we did was memorable, and you've been a big supporter of BTL all these years, and I'm going to give this to you.
Oh, thank you
to
so
celebrate,
much, Mark.
man.
I appreciate it.
All
Look
right.
at this.
It's gonna happen.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you.
It's going to happen.
Look at that. Big old bottle of champagne.
Cook's
Excellent.
Brute champagne.
That's it.
I
Be
think
careful
they'll-
about setting it down on that table.
I think they'll let me pop it on stage once we get that win.
Yeah,
Whether it
you
be
can carry it around,
Elite
you can
Series.
take it home, you can
Thank
do
you.
whatever with it.
I appreciate
but,
that.
You will pop that cork very soon, man.
Thank you. Well, if I win AOY, we're in contention. If I win AOY in a couple
That's good
weeks,
enough, man.
On stage.
There you have it. All right, you good, Matthew?
I'm impressed, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I try to
That
do
is
cool
a
things.
big bot. He will not be good during the post-win interview if he has to pop
That's
it, because
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a lot of
good
fluid
champagne,
ounces.
too.
Thank you,
It's
dude.
real good.
I
All right,
appreciate
man.
that
All
so
right, you're
much.
rocking it this year. Best of luck to you at Tenkiller, and Matt and I are going to be there. I'm going to be there at least one day. I don't know how many days Matt will be there.
Cool.
But we will come and check out what's going on over at Lake Tenkiller for the final event going into the Angler of the Year race. And then you guys have to get out of there,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yep. We got a boogie. Head
Yeah.
straight up to Detroit, Michigan,
Yeah.
and finish off the season.
Top 50 still this year?
What is it? Is it top 50? I think it is.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Think so?
Now you're locked into the Gunnersville Classic.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is true.
All right, very cool. All right, what a great way to kick off the week. Chris, I want to thank you for being in studio. I know the fans thoroughly enjoyed the way that you explained so many things on this show. All right, tomorrow, Bradley Hallman live from Grand Lake, and then the man that got it done at Oneida Lake on Wednesday, Gray Buck, one of the all-time names in fishing.
He's a cool dude, too. I've actually never interviewed Gray Buck.
Yeah.
But I know people who know him that are like, dude, Gray Buck's really good.
Yeah.
You need to interview him.
What was cool is when I called him up, I go, hey, this is Mark with BTL. Oh, Bass Talk Live. Yeah, what's going on?
That's cool.
You knew all about it,
I had
man.
David Dudley stop us at the Forest Wood Cup and say, listen, it was the highlight of the show. He didn't know my name, but he knew that I was with BTL.
Yeah. All right.
He goes, hey, that show you do, I watch it sometimes.
All right,
I was
very
like,
good.
I'll take it.
There you have it. All right, everybody. Tomorrow, same time, right here on BTL. Don't forget, if you're listening on iTunes, make sure you review us. Make sure you give us a rating. It helps us out tremendously. All right, everybody, be safe. We're out of here.
Popping bottles.